projects in your ministry that are marginal in terms of their timelines? And I'm referring to the storage, the batteries tenders mainly. Will we have them ready until August 26? Are you concerned about that? And what's your thought? Thank you for the invitation. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start with a broader comment. As you know, the RRF for our ministry has a series of ex-economo projects for the energy upgrade for residential houses. Also, it has some other projects, hydrogen, water tanks, and also it has a series of reforms. So we have a lot of exercises in front of us. We have to keep our plan, which is really long and really deep, and we want to be able to meet our targets until the summer of 2026. If we believe that we run a risk that something cannot be implemented within the RRF timeline, we need to be able to have a plan B. Now, regarding storage that you asked, I asked this because it is relevant to the conference. Now, in the RRF, we have several targets. We have several objectives and outcomes to be reached. So we see which are our commitments, which are not always the 100% of an action, but anyway, we have to evaluate, to assess the target and evaluate its outcome. In relation to the discussion that we had last spring, when I started with my office, I believe that storage is a bit better than we were last summer. So I see that we're making progress. Of course, there are some projects that have specific challenges, but I don't see any systemic delay or inertia. The projects are being implemented. Among them, we do have some issues, the tenders being some of these issues. Question. We have a very specific topic here. What about the third tender for batteries? The RRF says that they will be included in the upgraded plan only if they can be implemented until August 26. All others will be out of the fund. So they won't get any assistance, no matter whether they are entitled. Will they lose their funding? That's the question. I do understand the question, and I'm saying that we have the same exercise that regards many types of programs in our ministry under the RRF. It is very well understood that all programs have their timeline, and if you don't keep it, you won't have the RRF financing. So we always have a plan B with alternative financing tools. At the moment, I do not have an answer to what you ask. What will happen for the projects that will not keep the timeline? Our aim is that they all keep the timeline so that we reach the best storage that we can. Another question, please. There are some completed programs for the joint connection point. Why don't they go ahead? We're speaking about batteries, but this is not a matter of ideology. It's a practical matter. Curtailments and decreased prices of the RES is huge. So the time to implement some kind of a design for batteries is not just for those who who already have started working on the batteries industry, but for all the others also. Of course, storage is beneficial for the whole system. I believe that we have 5 or 6 different channels for storage, tenders, co-locations, joint connection points. We have various solutions, and we try to include them all in this plan of accelerated implementation, as I mentioned. Of course, I hear what you say. I just repeat that it's a very difficult exercise, and we try to run all these parallel systems the fastest possible. Question. I hear that there are some programs that are already completed. So can they go ahead? Yes, I hear your question. My answer is that we try to do our best. Is there any case of an extension of the timeline in the tenders? In the case of the tenders, we gave an extension for the merchant batteries. This came from the demand of the market to change some of the terms and include them in the ministerial decision. After the decision, we had a lot of questions. This MD was published when the leadership changed in the ministry, so we needed some time in order to answer, and that's why we extended the program. On this specific part that you mentioned, we don't need any further extension. As regards the other issues, we go back to the question of Mr. Findikakis, how we will collect the monies from the RRF. It depends on the RRF whether extensions are impossible in all sectors. I'm going to repeat a question that we had also in the June conference, Mr. Minister. What about mechanism for capacity balancing? As you said in the summer, we already have done the work and we want to see the implementation. Yes, we will go forward. I would say that we are now drafting a very complex ministerial decision. It has formulas inside. It has a lot of provisions and a lot of clauses. Can you be more specific about that? I hope that before the end of this year we will be ready. We don't know whether we can cover previous periods. I do understand that there is a major damage in the market. I do understand there are requests. We'll see what we can do. I do not have an accurate answer to your question. We speak with the market. We know that there are problems. Okay, let's hope that until the end of this year we'll have a solution. Another issue, we have discussed about it for long. What about the connection terms? What about the access to the grid? At some point, we had seen that it was a political decision, of course, based on the technical documentation, to enhance, to support other forms of RES technologies in relation to the PVs. What about that? Will it be transformed into some policy? Will we have a decision on connection terms? Let's go a bit back here, since we speak about access to the grid. This morning I read my figures, and I'm going to say the following. The PV is 61.5 megawatts, gigawatts. So considering all the remaining projects, it's 80 gigawatts. currently. The wind energy is 16 to 17 gigawatts plus 10 or something more under production's guarantee. So if we have a consumption average of 5.5 gigawatts, the prospects to access the grid, the desires to access the grid is not realistic. Second, the grid is already not exactly saturated, but we have given too many connection terms for the future. So we all hope that they will get some connection terms when their own terms might lead to a congestion to the system. At this point, I believe that we have to open a more detailed and more technical discussion. In a market where we don't have any zones or nodal pricing models, the way to manage local congestion is not clear, because if we have local congestion, you will have the question from the local producers: who is going to produce? Who is going to give this energy to the grid? And then we cannot allocate the costs to all consumers. We will never have a cheap energy this way. In other words, both in terms and investment prospects, the storage is interesting, and it is logical to enhance, to support wind parks to this end, but the translation of this prospect to the reality in the grid is a different matter. Sometimes we speak about investments, but we forget to see demand and offer. Since last summer, I have a single question: will you stop the connection terms? I understand your question. The answer is not a single yes or single no. We are not following anymore the logic that we have 100% guaranteed grid access. Europe says that we need to have flexible terms. So the conditions of this flexibility are not general or political matters, are technical matters. How much time I can be connected, on what specifications, etc. These are technical issues. But of course, whenever you have a certain demand, you cannot say that everyone has access to the grid 24/7. We understand that, but on the other hand, you're here because you already were a consultant of the minister, so you know these issues for long and you have experience. How soon will you be in the position to take decisions? We need an architecture for the market. I do agree with you. And I am saying that the basic question here is to have a framework for flexible contracts and see what will be their visibility to the future. Because I can't give just terms saying that I cannot guarantee that you can infuse the grid with your energy. Yes, we do give these papers to some people, but some companies will say that this thing that you give me doesn't guarantee anything. So I cannot give a concrete answer. Okay, this is obvious what you say. It's a technical matter, but nevertheless, the flexible when will we see these flexible terms context? I do understand your question. I do understand that everything should be already running since yesterday, but I repeat that it is a difficult issue, both in terms of technicalities and in terms of the daily life of the grid. Sometimes we do not protect the grid from you without giving you access. It's not a train which is congested and we can put more people inside. It's a different thing, the grid. I do insist in my question because it's an answer. We wait for an answer for long. Nevertheless, let's go to another issue. ELAPE. There is a special levy, which is called ELAPE. This levy was 250 million negative in the summer. Who is going to pay for this? The producers? Will we have also a fiscal deficit? Excuse me, a cash deficit? Because if we translate these terms to cash notions, then this is going to be a problem. As you see, we gave the green fee, the green levy, to the special levy, the special levy, which is going to be called ELAPE forward, as if in order to solve the short-term capacity issue that we had at the time. Also, last August, we had very low prices for the PVs. Unfortunately for the country, and with consequences for ELAPE, we are not at this position now. We have 118 euros the megawatt hour now in October. So we can't speak about ELAPE in August. This is not indicative for the whole year. It was just a number. We do have the green levy now. And of course, we see other ways to enhance it, to support it rather. But as regards how we cover ELAPE, you're going to ask me how we are going to cover the industry, how we're going to cover this and that. I understand this because you're a journalist, but you have to understand that policymaking considers balancing all these special funds, because the allocation doesn't follow any magical recipe. We do understand what you say, but if you mean, to paraphrase what you say, that you do have the tools so that ELAPE will not have any deficit that will lead to problems in payments. Yes, of course. We want to support ELAPE. We did that with the green levy. It is our aim not to endanger ELAPE. Will you have any other increases for any other instruments, rather? We have some other structural instruments in the long term. But in the short terms, as you speak about the special duty for reduction of gas emissions, the ELAVI, so-called, I am saying to you that we'll find the best mix in order to cover all needs. Self-production, self-consumption. This is a major chapter. In my opinion, I don't see any reason why not to proceed. It's a win-win for everyone, for the system, for the consumers, for the producers, and for the energy balance also. I believe that the proposals, the recommendations that we have in the sector are very realistic and practical. Why don't we proceed with them so that we can see these type of projects being implemented? This is an important part of the general policy making in our ministry. I agree with you, and we want to focus especially on clarifying specific notions, practical notions, not strategic, at the level of high oversight. The Association of Photovoltaics have submitted very concrete and specific recommendations. I know we are studying these recommendations we do understand that it might be useful for the grid, for the system. What about the spatial allocation, configuration of the RES? The reality is that in the country, we have a static situation. We have many thousands PVs already established, and RES works. So one cannot reconfigure this geography. So instead of speaking in theoretically, the ministry could get the map with the existing licenses, with existing permits. They know where they are, how they are deployed, etc., etc., and they could plan the allocation of the pipelines. Could this be an option? The minister says that I do not understand why you're saying that we're speaking theoretically. Let me start from what I was saying before. At the moment, we have 60 gigawatts photovoltaics with the permits and 15 or 16 wind parks licensed. A licensed project is not in the logic of the spatial configuration planning, because this configuration will regard the newcomers in the area. So the whole concept of structuring the geography regards those works, those projects that have a guarantee of the producer, but they don't have a license yet. And here we have clearly a different approach in between PVs and winds. PVs are much more, many more than the winds. They are not so smoothly allocated in Greece. We have an over-concentration in 6-7 areas in Greece. But in theory, we have everywhere, while the wind parks are in clusters, 5-6 points in the country, with all the projects together. Those with the guarantee of the producer, those with the license, and those that are still pending. So we don't want to alter the existing system, but we want to see how we can improve it. In the PV's case, my major concern is that someone can very well look at the map and say that we are full of photovoltaics, we don't need any more. But that's not true. We are speaking about polygons of projects that sometimes they are inexistent. If we reach the 60 gigawatts with 35 a sec, then the whole country will be full of PVs in all the lands. But that's not the case. So we have to see how we can restrict the photovoltaics so as to say that there is a margin for some more in relation to how many they are already in, and there is no need to proceed to investments in general, but only whenever we see that there are economies of scale. This is the exercise. Of course, this government has set some restrictions for mountains, etc. This is another type of exercise. Okay, thank you. We are going to close this interview, this discussion rather, with a question that concerns most of us people here. We are not all experts, but we want to know what happens. We see renewables, we see batteries, we see storage, we see the energy transition strategy. The question is, when will the consumers be benefited from these energy transition policies? And which is the central strategy of Europe to provide environmentally friendly policies, good for the environment, good for the consumers? Thank you for this question, because it's a good opportunity to discuss this matter. Sometimes in our daily discussions, we lose the big picture. And the big picture for me is the following. In 2019, we had the price of 64 euros, 70% higher than Germany, 35% higher than Bulgaria. So it was red. We had the highest price throughout Europe, and we imported 18% of our consumption. Production was down and we imported. Today we have higher prices. And let me remind you, because the natural gas is higher. And the gas is at higher prices because yet we do not have enough production to cover the Russian gap in 22-23. Let me remind you that if you see high prices in Greece and in Europe, you have to remember that the problem is natural gas in this mix. And we're saying this, though in Greece we do not use so much high gas mixes, while as in other European countries. So, of course, we see the absolute figures, but we also see the connection of our country, of Greece, with other countries. 35% higher to Bulgaria, but now we are lower than Bulgaria after 5-6 years. 10-15 euros lower than Romania and Bulgaria. This is a success, and we export today. Last year we were marginally exportive. Now we export even more. 9 out of 10 days we can export. This means that we have reactions. Why we export while the prices are high. But this is a success for the country. We have 500 million more just because we can export energy now. So this change from importers to become exporters, from the highest wholesale price in Europe, higher than our neighbors, to have the lowest price in the neighborhood, to be an exporter, to have a positive investment and trade balance. This means that we have a lot of investing prospect. We try to find ways to sell our energy, and this is a major success. Question. So you say that we have seen the positive consequences. Of course we have. Comparing 2025 with 2019, the success is huge. Okay, just one final question. The Prime Minister many times has said that renewable energy are many and cheap, but they don't. These cheap prices don't go to the the consumers. What is the problem here? I answer in this way. Already the consumer have been benefited. If we had the system of 2019 nowadays, and we were more expensive than Bulgaria, we wouldn't have a dam of 100, but 120. So this is important. Why can't we pay less? Because the natural gas is expensive. That's the reality. We have better conditions in the renewables, but we have expensive natural gas. This creates a mix with a higher price. So you say that if the natural gas drops internationally, this whole chain is going to be impacted, right? Yeah, I'm saying two things. One, our country is in a better condition than it was 6 years ago. If we see that on the map we are lower than Austria, and you remember last year Austria was half price from us, and we were so concerned about that. Last month we were at the same levels with Austria. Now we are lower than Austria. This is a success. But also we are inside the connected grid. We are in the European grid. And our price is connected to the sub-markets in the European area. We also see that the new production of natural gas for 27, 28, 29, when we'll have much higher volumes in the market, this will have an even further positive impact for the consumers. And at that point, the renewables will not undermine the positive consequent impact of the gas, but it's going to complement this positive image. So we'll have a better price for gas and a good price for the renewables. Thank you, dear Minister, that you came here and that you gave us the valuable information. We are going to invite you, of course, to follow the conference, the proceedings of the conference online, if you may, because I believe that it's going to we are going to share useful information. Thank you. I always, of course, follow the discussion throughout the day.